Welcome back for a long-anticipated episode of the CC Football Podcast. We got Craig and Hemant, the usual suspects here, and today we are going to be doing our our just Premier League predictions. What's up, guys?
Yo, what's up? Seamless intro, Clay, like we never left.
Exactly. Just hit the ground running, you know?
The first take. We logged into Zoom and got the meeting started.
There we go. We're hopping back into it 2 feet, you know, we're starting into the deep end because, you know, we're coming a little bit later after 1 week. And we kind of wanted that weekend to see how each team would look after their summer transfer window is almost done. So, yeah.
Well, Clay, like anybody and everybody can do a preseason prediction, but not many people can do a post week 1 prediction.
That's true.
Right.
Yes.
So we're changing it up here.
And we had to give Clay and Hemant enough time to grow out those mustaches. We're seeing. Yeah. Bring them close to the camera. Oh, look at that.
I have good lighting here, but it's coming in. You'll jump on the bandwagon eventually.
Dude, the thing is, I'll be happy to jump on the bandwagon, but my facial hair
doesn't want to.
Not jumping on the same wagon.
All right, let's jump off. So we're just gonna go. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see that we have the league table split up into 7 tiers, and we're just gonna go tier by tier and reveal me, Craig, Hemant, and Clay Troyer also sent in his prediction. So I took a peek at them. We can discuss them. And yeah.
Wait, right. So am I right in saying that only you know the answers to all these, or like only you have?
Yeah, so only I've seen as I was compiling this beautiful presentation you guys see in front of you. I am the only one who knows what lies behind the squares. So I think we got some explaining to do for some of us. All right, let's kick it off.
Except Clay Troyer.
Exactly. He won't be here. We can just roast him all of us here. But in the relegation, places 18 through 20, drum roll, please.
Hey! Sound effects.
Whoa.
Look at that. Look at that.
Holy heck.
Unanimous on 2 across the board.
Yeah, so all of us are saying that
Sheffield United and Luton Town.
And all of us are saying that Burnley is going to stay up. So that's an interesting prediction there.
I feel like the only one that probably we need to spend time talking about is Everton.
Yeah, Craig, you and I are in agreement, it looks like.
Yeah, you and
Clay.
Hemant and Craig both have Nottingham Forest going down, and I have Everton going down. You know, I was really hoping that this might be a little bit of a bias pick from me here. Admittedly, like I was really hoping that they were going to go down last year, and they almost did. And to me, they haven't done enough in this window to strengthen themselves outside of being in a relegation scrap. You know, I could see them or a few other teams, as you're going to see in the next tier, going down. And for me, this, I guess, my bias as a Liverpool fan kind of pushed me over the edge. And you know, I think that when you employ a relegation coach, you're going to be in relegation battles.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Why are you calling him a relegation coach? He's the anti-relegation coach.
No, because every single year as Burnley manager, his goal was to just avoid relegation, right?
And he did that.
Right, but if that's your goal, that means you're going to be in a relegation battle every single year.
Yeah.
You have higher mentality, like a higher bar. Give less room for error.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, did you guys see I bought the new Manchester United jersey for the first season?
Is this it?
Oh, wow.
No, it's the same as like all the other ones.
Yeah, I was just testing you guys.
I don't know if it's the new one.
Chevrolet. This is from like 2017.
All right.
We fooled the audio listeners on that. Clay, I wish I could disagree with you, but I mean, I don't really have a lot to defend Everton on. as I guess we'll see soon. And it's just sad. When Craig and I were watching the highlights of the last Everton match, I was just sad watching it. This once great club, this is the level that we're talking about them now in relegation contention.
Yeah. Yeah, but honestly,
But
like, I mean, it would be funny for me to see our local rivals go down, but the Merseyside derby is a game that has lots of history and stuff, and that wouldn't be happening if they're in the championship, unless Liverpool go
that's true.
down
Plus,
Uh-oh.
yeah, wait till you see my 17th place. Plus, apparently, Manchester United might be signing that one guy from Everton, the midfielder. I think his name's Onana. I think
Yeah,
Manchester United just
Amadou Onana.
yeah, I think they're going. I think they're going on an Onana
Double up.
signing streak. this
Double up.
summer. Um,
Are you
So-
sure they just didn't like send the Onana paperwork to the wrong team?
they might have. They might have.
All right.
All right, let's reveal the bottom half. So this is gonna be 13 through 17. I guess this is poorly labeled because I guess bottom half should be
Definitely not the bottom half.
but all right. Anyways, this is just a template that I found online, so don't blame me. But bottom half. Ooh, all right. So you guys all have Everton in your bottom
Holy
half.
Hemant. Jeez, anti-Fulham.
Oh, Clay Chora is also anti-Fulham with me.
Yeah, but not 17th place.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
that's a
crazy.
good time there. Yeah, so what are we consensus on here? Crystal Palace, I see.
Yeah.
Burnley. And that's it. Is the
Yep.
consensus.
Yep. So I guess Craig and Clay have Wolves going up pretty high. Craig, I want to hear why you think Wolves can avoid a struggling season after they have lost so many players this summer and also lost their manager most recently.
Well, should I talk about Wolves when
All
we
right,
get
so
to my
we'll wait
Wolves
till you.
pick?
We'll wait till you.
Because you
But-
don't know. You don't know
yeah.
where I have Wolves. I might have Wolves in the UCL spots. Let's not be.
All right.
How about
Swimming
this?
in North
How about this, Craig? Talk about why you have Villa so far down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they lost 5-1. Or did they? What did they lose for?
Oh,
No, that's not the reason.
Yeah.
Obviously they did lose. I think it was 4-1, right?
Yeah. It was
Um,
4-1.
4-1. I'll be honest, it was less so like I say this every single year. It's one of those things where if you'd asked me before the pod or before I made the predictions, like, oh, where do you think you'd see Villa? Oh, although 13th is not that far down, but I probably would have said, 12th and higher. So it's not like I came into this wanting to predict them 13th and lower, but then when you actually see all the teams and you start putting them in the spots, you realize that there's a lot of teams that I would have said 12 and higher. And yeah, I just kind of have to pick one, and they're the one I felt least confident about. Yeah, and I went with it.
I mean, that's
Maybe
kind of
maybe the 4-1 pushed me over the edge.
that's the same logic that I went with West Ham because
I was just gonna ask you that.
yeah, because it gets actually very difficult to order like I think the top 11 or 12 teams. Obviously there's tiers inside of them, but like I think that West Ham last year first, I mean obviously they lost Declan Rice, which is going to be I think a massive loss for them, but more than that, last year or 2 years ago they had an up and coming season, and then they struggled with balancing Europe and the Prem, and I mean good or bad for them, they won the conference league,
Trophy.
playing in Europa League again this year. So I think that it might be another year where
That's a good point.
they are stretched pretty thin, and that might be a theme that I'm going to be hinting towards in my future predictions.
Oh,
A little foreshadowing,
I
a little
like it.
motif action.
Yes.
yeah. I'm not a big buyer of Fulham stock. Maybe I'm not convinced by their defense, but we'll see. It's interesting to see. We all had Burnley avoid relegation. I'd like to see many companies team do well, but I feel like there's just a ceiling to teams who just get promoted, especially like playing out of the back and being a bit more adventurous. So hopefully they don't get relegated. But interesting too that Clay Troyer is yet to pick Nottingham Forest. So maybe he has a big season in store for the.
Well, I saw one stat talking about Burnley and all the newly promoted sides that like in order to survive your first season in the past however many years, you have to have spent at least $50 million in the transfer window to
Mm,
prepare. And none of the three teams that just came up have done that yet.
dang.
So
Good research. Shout out to the hard
I know, I've been
research that
digging
you
deep in
do.
the numbers.
Yeah.
By the way, I guess we skipped over it, which makes sense. We don't really need to talk about relegation as much. I know we're short on time, but I saw something like even Luton Town, apparently the way they've been spending money, a lot of people are saying because they haven't really bought any big name players or any signings that are a lot of money, even though they obviously they got a decent chunk of money for promotion. Apparently, hypothesis is that they're just playing it smart and build like knowing that good chance of they'll probably get relegated this year, but they'll prepare so they definitely win the championship next year and then come back much more prepared to build a proper Premier League squad in 2 years rather than like trying to do something right now and then still getting.
I mean, what a story! I mean,
That's interesting.
I put them in 19th, and I think you guys would agree with me that I hope I'm wrong on this one because it's crazy to see them. I mean, they were in the first division or whatever it was called back then, and then they fell all the way down to non-league, and now they've gotten promoted, and they have one player on their team who has been with them from like non-league football through like all those promotions and everything, and he's still on the
2012.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So
Incredible story.
I hope the like the little man story is right, but I've seen this one before, I guess.
Yeah. Not a believer. Clay, it looks like you and I yet to unveil Bournemouth too. So looks like we're big believers in the charities.
Yeah, well maybe we'll see him in this tier.
There they are.
There we go. So this is mid-table, places 8 through 12. And one thing that I noticed straight off the bat when I was making this is that all four of us had Brighton in this group. And Brighton's a team that
and Brentford.
Yeah. So two teams that I think we would both agree, or all three of us would agree that showed a lot of promise last year. And I would like to hear your guys' take on why you put them and outside of European spots or even lower than that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to frame the question is why did we all put them so low? Because any Brighton fan or player, I think, would be disappointed with an 8th place finish. Like they're shooting for a European spot, which 2 years ago, if you look at this table, or maybe 3 years ago, if you look at this table, the question is definitely, how come you're putting Brighton up so high? So I think that's credit to the club, and it's also credit to. It's crazy because 3 years ago you started seeing signs, and 2 years ago they were obviously good. They had so many good players, and every year they've sold players because they have all these promising players. So it's credit to them that even after selling all those players, plus this year selling 2 or 3 if they're massive players bringing massive money, we still somehow all think they're gonna be in that 8th, 9th spot, which means still challenging for European football. That I think that's huge on its own. But yeah, if I were to answer why so low, that probably would be the answer. I think they have lost key players this year, which I think they're fine because they've proven that they can be, but maybe just missing out on the European spots to some of the stronger teams above them.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with all that.
Also, one thing that I was kind of alluding to when I was talking about West Ham, I think is also going to apply to Brighton. They also now they're going to have to play not only once a week, but also twice a week. They're going to have to play midweeks. And especially when you've lost players that played almost every game for you, like McAllister and Caicedo and others, that will come into effect when you're trying to integrate new players to the squad, and also you don't have as much time to train and teach the tactics that they're trying to employ and stuff. But yeah, I really like Brighton, and I think they do have a lot of their recruitment is crazy. Every year they seem to have one guy that sold for 100 million that they bought for half that the year before.
No, not even half. Sometimes it's just like nothing.
Yeah.
Hemant,
and then I was just gonna I agree with both those points. And then quickly on Brentford, think it's just with some of these clubs it's simple in my brain of if they did well last year, then they're gonna fall off relative to that this year, or or vice versa. And with Brentford, I think the loss of or not having Ivan Toney for half the season. He's going to be going to impact them greatly. So that's kind of how I attributed their drop off.
Yeah, Hemant, do you also want to talk about, or Clay, Bournemouth and Villa? You guys both had them higher than me and Clay.
Yeah. I like Bournemouth. Bournemouth has a special place in my heart. I like the style of play that they have, the football they play. I think the players are talented. The likes of, you have a goal scorer, Solanke, you have a industrious midfielder, Philip Billing, you have a
Liverpool legend.
solid, yep, you have Harry Wilson in there. Is a like solid defense that's played together, have that chemistry, and apparently they have this new manager, and who knows? I'm just buying into the new manager phenomenon with Bournemouth. Maybe he'll like take them to the next level. The next level meaning out of relegation battle.
I really like Villa and like the recruitment they've done. I think that the way that they looked, even though they lost big time over this last weekend, I was really encouraged, especially in the first half, on how they played.
Yeah.
They showed that they were going to be expansive, and Unai Emery has been proven to be a decent manager. And so I think I back him, especially when the Villa is spending decent amount of money. Like they just bought that guy from Bayer Leverkusen, Diaby, and he looked really, really good.
Yeah, Musa
Diaby, yeah. So I think that they've spent money, and when I look at teams that had a decent season, and then they go out and they show aggression in the transfer market, that signals to me that they're not satisfied with just maintaining how they were last year, and they're showing some ambition to maybe break into the Brighton, Newcastle, etc., trying to join the type of player or teams that are trying to join the quote unquote big six, kind of like Leicester did for the last 5 years before they got relegated. But yeah, so Craig, I want to hear it from you. I asked you a little bit this earlier, but Wolves seems like everything's gone wrong for them this summer. Why you have them, let me see, in 11th or 10th?
Yeah, this first of all, also I'll point out that Victoria has him in 8th,
yeah, but he's not here to defend himself. So.
Yeah, honestly, that's too much even for me, because I felt like I was doing a crazy thing by putting them in 10th. I didn't expect to get beaten out by Clay Troyer, but yeah, I think this was honestly very, very heavily influenced recency bias. We're recording this a few hours after the United Wolves game, and if anybody watched that game, it's ridiculous. I mean, Gary O'Neill's been here for like 2 seconds. Like he literally got hired. He hasn't even slept 2 nights with this team, and you would have expected them to be all over the place. A brand new team, brand new manager, not even a manager who's been there the whole summer, who's had preseason, and they absolutely dominated. They dominated a Manchester United team that has had a manager, has had a whole season to put everything together, make his signings, plus make new signings, a full preseason you would have expected. And it's reflective on both sides. So this is not a game review, so we won't talk about United's performance, but it was really bad. So that was also kind of crazy. But on the flip side, you got to give credit to Wolves, and the way they played was really, really impressive. Obviously, it's just the first game. You don't know that it's going to last. But normally, I feel like if a team performs really bad in the first game, you can't really rely on that, right? Because everyone can turn around a good performance. But if a team can put together a proper team performance like that in the first game, that's not the same thing. That means that they have it in them. They have the quality. They have the team. This is with no coaching. So they have the potential. And I was really impressed with almost all of them, but a lot of individual performances. What's the Clay? Did you watch the game? What's the name of their signing in midfield? I forget. Cunha, is that his name?
Cunha, yeah, Cunha.
And it wasn't just him, it was every single one of them, but it's just brilliant the way they were controlling the game, running up to midfield, the transitions, working as a team, press when they did it. It was awesome. And if they have that already, I think they just showed a lot of potential to me, and the new players all showed potential. So that's why I bumped them up a bit. Obviously it could fall off, it could be a new manager bounce, but yeah.
All right, that's respectable. All right. So I noticed while you were talking that all four of us have the same 7 teams in Europe. Yeah.
Ooh, good
So
observation.
we'll see if
Time
we
to
have
ruffle
the same
some
order.
feathers.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move into the conference league now. 7th spot by
Can I
itself.
make a prediction?
Yep.
I'm gonna predict that only 3 people have Tottenham in this spot and 1 person doesn't.
All right. Well, I'm about to find out. Only
Oh,
one.
wow.
Ooh, everyone's
Holy
gone
heck.
for a different club.
So
Yeah,
I went with
wait.
Newcastle
Tottenham.
in 7th.
Wait, we're able to edit, trim out parts of this,
Oh, yeah,
right?
so you cut that part out.
Just cut that
Okay,
part
okay.
out. Yeah, cut out the prediction.
Craig, you went with Tottenham in 7th, and Hemant went with Manchester United, and Clay went with Chelsea. And I think Clay over text, I can kind of vocalize his thoughts. He's kind of vocally said that Chelsea he thinks is a dumpster fire, chaos and stuff. So I can see why he put them that low, from his perspective, I guess. But yeah, I guess Hemant, I'll start with you. Manchester United in 7th is pretty bold, I think. Tell me why you think they will finish there.
Yeah, good question. So
That is a
I
huge call.
so really it just comes down to, and I felt kind of this way last year as well, that I think United is a solid team, but they lack the creativity and like in I guess the decisiveness going forward, and they don't create as much as I would like a top team to. And that's how I felt, especially before the Wolves game, and maybe the Wolves game enhanced how I was feeling. But yeah, I feel like they're a solid defensive team, which is great. But for a team to do well, like it and when I say do well, I mean in this position compete in the top 4, then I would like to see them be more clinical and be more creative and create more opportunities. And especially as I think the way United is built and plays right now is fine for like last season, but as they're looking to build on last season, then that's where that extra element I think would need to be added, and I'm not sure they have it, and I don't see it.
So can I ask a pushback question? And
Yes.
and to be honest, this is honestly just for sake of debate, not because I'm a United fan. I feel like what you said, I agree with everything you said. Um, I'm only from a logical perspective. I'm wondering everything you said, like you said, was true last year, right? That's where you're basing this
Mhm.
off of. You said you watched last year and they weren't as creative, etc. Um, and yet, yes, last year they finished in 3rd place, and it wasn't particularly close. Like, well, it was
Right.
points were close at the end of the season, but everyone would have said they definitely deserved that third. Like that was the United City, Arsenal, United was the 3rd place spot based on the performance of this whole season. And keep in mind, they started with a brand new manager. They lost those first few games were rough. Lost 4 whatever to Brighton, lost to Brentford at home, etc. And played that style of football and finished in 3rd place. So if you're saying that they're going to play the same style of football, why does that warrant then a drop from 3rd to 7th place? Now with that, you would assume that they would get better now that Eric Ten Hag's had a whole year. They've brought in some
Right.
reinforcement. They brought in a new striker, which we didn't have last year, like an actual striker, etc.
Yeah.
Unless you're saying that the other teams have all gotten that much better, and that's why they're dropping from 3rd to 7th.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the jump that I would envision from United would be less than the jumps that I can see from these other clubs that, for example, you might have had down years last year, and all of a sudden there's a lot of new like pieces in their situations, and I think that it could go really well for them or poorly for them. So yeah, I think it is more of that latter comment you made of, I think some of the other clubs last year that had down years could have big rebound years.
I think a lot of it rides on for the success of United this year. rides on the signing of, how do you pronounce his name, Craig? Hoyland?
Well, that's how I
yeah.
would pronounce it, but I have seen a video on YouTube where he was saying to like a bunch of press, he's like, "Oh, none of you guys can pronounce my name," and it was like, I think it was almost like a silent D, and when you actually pronounce it. And
So
where's he
Hoyland.
from? Like Hoyland or something. Yeah.
Okay, well, anyways, Rasmus. We'll call him Rasmus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of last year, I mean, they were starting like Wout Weghorst and at striker and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of it really boils down to the fact that they need a striker who will score goals. And when I look at the teams that United's competing with for Europe and beyond, most of them have a player or one or two that you can look at and say that this player will score at least 15 goals, 20 goals this year. And, you know, I guess like Rasmus came in a little bit out of shape or whatever, or he didn't have the whole training camp to train with the squad. So I'm going to be really interested to see once he does start getting, you know, regular game time, how effective he is, because I think a lot of the success or not success of United relies on him. Because to me, like if you look at the striker, if you cut the striker off and down on paper, United have a top 4 team, in my opinion, in the league. But it really boils down to, can they score those goals? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
all right. Craig, any thoughts you have on Tottenham, why you picked them in 7th?
Oof.
Not really, to be honest. Like I said, I made that prediction, and I'm very surprised that you guys all have them above. I'm surprised I'm the only one. I can get these top 7 spots. I understand.
Well, you knew Clay was never going to put them in 7th.
I knew Clay was never going to do it. I'm surprised. I'm definitely surprised at the United being below Spurs, because if the reason is lack of creativity, definitely because of, I mean, they just lost Kane. That was the only thing they had all of last year, and they still were horrible. Even with Kane putting up, what was it, like record numbers, right? Like if not for Holland, he would
Yeah.
have the Golden Boot and the assist. Now he's gone. Son was poor last year. He's not looking like he's much better. We only had one game.
Yeah.
This year he's captain, which I don't think is going to help him. I actually think that's going to make him worse. And yeah, I mean, but on the other hand, new manager, new signings. I thought Basuma looked great in the first game. So I don't know why he didn't play last year. So I think they're gonna be a better team this year. But the problem is, so I would love to be wrong on this, because I think that I could be. And if this was like right after Pochettino, like this was their first new managerial change, I wouldn't have had them in this, because they looked great in the first game. It's exciting. The problem is I've felt this way about Tottenham 3 times now in the last 4 years, where it's like, oh, new manager, great signings. They look very good preseason. Oh, first game, oh, very exciting. And every single time it only lasts a few months and it's gone. So why statistically should I again back them just to be proven wrong? If I am proven wrong, then great. But I don't think that means that this was the wrong decision, because
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
felt that way three
fool me once,
times.
Fool me once,
Yeah.
you know, type of scenario.
To channel my inner Clay Troyer, I would say because Angie Ball, or whoever this new manager is, because I would say that the previous 2, Jose and Conte, are serial winners, right? But their style of play is more defensive and is less free flowing. We haven't seen this, I guess, type of philosophy at Spurs since probably the days of Poch. And so that's what excites me about Spurs this year is, and in the loss of Kane, I think also goes with that, is Kane was obviously amazing, but without him, I think they can run more. They can, get up and down the pitch more. So,
oops, I did not mean to
That
do
makes
that.
sense. Yeah, just to add before we go on to the next part, to my prediction, I also think, like I said, I hope I'm proven wrong, but I actually think it's unfair for anybody, including Tottenham fans, to expect, especially in a league that's this strong this year, to expect them to finish above or be mad if they don't, because of what Hemant just said. Like, Kane leaving is probably a good thing long term, so now they can properly rebuild. But we've always said this for any club: a proper rebuild takes time. Give them 1 year to especially with this sort of philosophy, it comes with cons that's much more dangerous to play than Jose's philosophy. There's always yeah, and so give him a chance, give him a year to try to build this philosophy into the club, like Arteta did with Arsenal. Now we're seeing the like we have a great example in the last few years. So I think it's unfair even if they do finish in seventh. I don't think that's a bad season as long as the style is implemented and then they go make the right signings like Arsenal. But okay, 5 and 6.
Wait, Clay Troyer, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Newcastle.
You mean?
Well, he doesn't have.
Or sorry, Clay Wright.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I think that my thinking was more of you see these teams that don't have historically they don't have experience balancing multiple competitions that are actually demanding throughout the whole season. And I look at that and with West Ham, I look at that with Brighton, and I look at it again with Newcastle. This is gonna be their first time, I don't know, I want to say ever, but in a very, very long time that they, especially since this rebuild that they, or this new takeover that they have had, that they're going to be in the Champions League. And I think that they're going to try to perform well in that. And they're going to try to progress, obviously, as far as they can. And to me, when I look at their squad, I don't see enough depth as much as the other 6 teams that I've put ahead of them that two of which, or maybe do Tottenham and Chelsea both don't have Europe at all to deal with, and Newcastle does. And I would argue that definitely Chelsea and maybe even Tottenham has more depth than Newcastle right now. I think top to bottom, like if you just put their best starting 11, Newcastle would be ahead of Tottenham and maybe ahead of some other teams. But to me, I think that they're going to struggle to once again juggle those competitions as the season wears on. I could see maybe some injuries coming up and whatever, but yeah, I could also, I think that they, even though I put them in 7th, I could see them making a deep run in one of the like domestic cups, like FA Cup or Carabao Cup, and really going after some silverware this year. But
I think
before we move on to the Europa League, we're going to take a quick break and switch Zoom calls.
A note from our sponsors.
Welcome back Welcome back to the studio. Looks like, am I crazy or did Hemant use the ad break to put on glasses?
Oh, this podcast brought to you by glasses. Unbranded glasses.
Can I say at this point, so we're about to move into the UEL, the 5-6 spots. No one's ever called the Europa League UEL before, but that's what it says on the screen. The Europa League 5 and 6 spots. And can I say at this point that it really sucks that Clay Wright knew all these teams before, because I feel like we would have gotten a great reaction at unveiling Liverpool in 6th place.
I mean, yeah. Honestly, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh, are you going to be honest right now?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. And I can see why Clay Troyer put them there. To be honest, I'm
on a scale of 1 to
Clay,
10,
the more you say you're being honest,
how honest are you being
right
now?
No, I'm being completely honest right now. But yeah, I see it. I could see a way very easily where Liverpool end up in 6th place this year. Kind of the same argument that Hemant made with Manchester United and them he put in them 7th. I think they have made improvements from last season. Obviously, last season was below their standards that Klopp has set forward for the club. And I really am concerned about the defensive midfield position. I think it was very apparent last game versus Chelsea that they could do a lot going forward, but in terms of they really, really, really desperately need a holding midfielder that can kind of anchor that defense, and because they did look open at some times and vulnerable. And McAllister, who played that 6th role pretty well, actually, in my opinion, on Saturday or Sunday, that's just not his best role, and he's not a ball winning midfielder. And I really like to see an anchor in front of or behind Szoboszlai and McAllister. And I think that was where that is, if they do sign a defensive midfielder, which all indications are that they will, but I mean, given the events of the last 2 or 3 days, the targets are drying up, and
we know who they're not going to sign. We know two people they're not going to sign.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I was really happy, and then I went to bed, and I woke up, and I was really sad because I thought that Caicedo was going to be a perfect fit for Liverpool, and I mean, and honestly, I don't think that Lavia. I mean, he seems like a good player, but he's just so young and so raw that he can't be that player that you expect to buy for 50 million pounds and then plug him into the midfield starting week in, week out, and take your team to be that missing piece. He still has the development that he needs to make himself before he can lift the team. And so I wasn't really sold to see if he was the right one to target, but honestly, that the club obviously did, because that's why they spent the last 2 months pursuing him. And then to have all that time and effort and honestly like publicity wasted, it just looks horrible for the club, and they've wasted now 2 months of the transfer window going after a player that they're not going to get. So
Jeez, Clay. If this was you being honest about Liverpool, then were you dishonest when you put them in the top four?
well, no, let me make my argument later when I unveil them as the winners.
That's when he talks about Ben Doak. That's when he talks about Ben Doak.
Dude,
do you guys want to give
a
word on United? Because it looks like everybody had United at 5th except for me.
Yeah. Craig, what's your thoughts on United this year?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I think
Uh-oh.
no, I'm just kidding. But actually though, to be honest, the only reason I was pushing him on earlier and asking all those questions was just to see what he had to say and kind of set myself up for later, because I actually had him in 6th first. Like I have nothing against them being in 7th. I was flip-flopping them between 5th and 6th on my what I said about Kane is true. I think that's probably the reason that I was going to keep him in this tier over Tottenham, which could be very false. But these 3 spots I was flip-flopping, yeah, pretty much for the reasons that Hemant said. Except I think I was not as worried. I don't know how to put this. I think it was more on the other teams than it was on United. I think United, they weren't super creative last year, but I mean, for most of the season, everyone was talking about them like a really, really solid team. Like in December, people were saying title challengers. That was never going to happen. But even though they weren't creating that much, even at that point, right? People were so happy with the way they were playing because they were solid defensively and they were scoring the goals they needed to score. They might have not been City scoring 5 goals a game. So my concern isn't as much with United. I think it was more so what Hemant mentioned about the difference in improvement of the squads. I think the other teams that I have above them have improved a lot or already were really good. Obviously, we haven't seen Liverpool yet, and I'm unsure on how much they've improved. We'll have to talk about the investment. I'm predicting that there'll be some more investment, and then just kind of experienced winners will maybe carry them a little bit. But yeah, I don't think United improved that much. I think it's like you said, Clay. I think it just comes down to the striker is going to be huge. I think 2 things are going to be huge. The 2 people we haven't seen playing yet, actually. Mason Mount's fine, good signing. Onana's a great signing. He was terrific today, by the way, and he's been really good all of preseason as far as being the type of ball-playing goalkeeper we wanted.
Especially when he got chipped.
Yeah, also making great saves. But the 2 players that are most important, we haven't seen play yet. One is the striker that you mentioned, Clay, because Rashford, we've said it for 7 years now. He's most comfortable on the left wing. You saw it again today. He's just not comfortable as a striker, even though he puts up great numbers last year. So Højlund, but then honestly, that second thing is somebody to play with Casemiro on the midfield, or even take his role when need be, who's I guess either going to be Amrabat, however you say his name, who we've seen exciting things from him in the World Cup. I'm not going to pretend like I watched the Italian league, but in the World Cup, or I guess this Onana guy from Everton, who I don't know much about, to be honest with you. But I think whoever we pick up to play in that midfield is going to be key, and that was the biggest problem today against Wolves, is that midfield to play with Casemiro was just not there. So those two signings could take us to the next level, but for now, until I see him, I'm putting us in the 5th, 6th level.
So Craig, then if you say that you guys need another like holding midfielder to pair up with, or a more box-to-box defensively minded midfielder, where does Mason Mount even fit in the team at that point?
Yeah, I did. That's the thing, is I honestly have no idea. I don't really know where Mason Mount fits. I mean, in preseason, he played some games even on the wing. I think he played a little bit on the wing and then a little bit in that. And honestly, it might end up being, actually, this is what happened in preseason. I think Bruno Fernandes was displaced like he was all of last season, and made to play on the right while Mason Mount was playing in the midfield. I think that happened a couple of times, and maybe that's what ends up happening. I don't know, which I don't want to happen because Bruno is so good in the middle, and when he plays on the right, it's because he's still producing and still impacting the game in some amount that people are like, okay, Eric Ten Hag is probably like, okay, well, if anyone's going to move, I'm going to move him there. He's still going to make an impact. But the difference in impact he makes from the middle versus the right is not even close. But to answer your question, I have no idea, but it's never a bad thing to have that question about, oh, well, where does this player fit now that we have all these other good players? I think that's always a good question to be asking. So I'm not.
In my opinion, if you look at United's strengths, I think they do have a lot of good options on the wing, or they'll have a lot of options. I don't know. I'm not really sold on, obviously Rashford's very good, but Antony still has stuff to prove, and so does Jadon Sancho, but
Garnacho.
Like, so they have 4 wingers that are fighting for spots every single week. And I don't know where I guess you could put Mason Mount in the middle and then Bruno on the right or whatever, but then you only have basically one spot for a winger, right? Which is Rashford. So you're just gonna bench Garnacho and Sancho and Antony, that you spent all this money on 2 of those guys?
Are you asking me that?
I don't know. I mean, it's a hypothetical question, but like, I think that there are the same, I guess, lineup conundrums that I was looking at United having last year. I think they're going to kind of strike again, especially if you think that Casemiro needs like Amrabat or Onana to play with him rather than, fill in for his shoes when he's tired or, suspended. But yeah. I guess none of the 4 of us had United finishing in Champions League, so that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, which by the way, obviously will be not something like United are going to be aiming. They were supposed to, after last season, now take that next step and try to challenge for the title. So that's not something that they'll be happy with if it does happen. It's not like, oh, this is where United are expected to finish.
Yeah. All right. Well, looks like Hemant had to hop off, but
can we talk about Newcastle real quick? Or I guess you already did talk about Newcastle.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Newcastle this year? I mean, I kind of said, well, I think that they might struggle, but you put them, I guess, only 1 spot ahead. But
yeah, I think that was probably that's probably a good explanation for why maybe United are ahead of them on my list. It's just they're not used to dealing with multiple competitions, but they do have a really, really good team. That are only gonna get better, and they had a great start to the season. Yeah. By the way, how are we going to reveal these next 4? Are we going to know the winner automatically when you go to the next transition for everyone?
Yeah, so the 2 through 4 are going to get revealed on the next click. So I guess smart people could deduce whoever people have winning. But I could maybe I'll reveal them all top 4 at the same time, and then
do that.
We'll let people or we can dissect everyone's selections. I think you're going to be shocked. I want to see your reaction here. So all right, so we're going to look at the Champions League spots now and the winner. So there's the Champions League and the winners for everybody. Oh, just in time. The man of the hour. So we've revealed the top 4, and let me just, for the listeners, go through and read off everybody's top four. So I had City winning it, and then Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea finishing 2 through 4. Craig had Chelsea winning it, which is also a bold take. And then City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and then Clay had City, Arsenal, and Newcastle, and then Hemant had Newcastle winning it.
Can I say at this point,
Arsenal and Liverpool? So we got to go to you first, Hemant. What are you thinking?
Wait, Craig, what did you want to say?
well, we do have to go to you first, and the reason is because earlier when I picked Wolves in 10th place, I was like, oh, that's a huge call, and that then Clay Troyer, or in 12th place or whatever, 10th place, so then Clay Troyer picked him in 8th, and I was like, oh wow, that was unexpected for me to get outbid on that surprising take. And then when I picked, the one thing I was 100% sure of is no one's gonna pick a crazier winner than Chelsea at top. I was like, all right, this is my bold prediction. Everyone's gonna be like, Craig, what's wrong with you? I never in a million years would have expected to have been outbid on this one too. But yeah, that's why we have to go to you first.
All right. Well, I might be trying to talk myself into this one as I go here, but I think it's a couple things. One, I think Newcastle genuinely has probably the second strongest squad in the Premier League, just top to bottom overall depth.
I
think
okay.
They have very strong depth.
Overall depth?
Overall depth.
That's the exact opposite of what I said. Why they're going to struggle.
I think they have strong depth.
Wow.
And they can bring off the bench Callum Wilson, like a top elite goal scorer in the Prem. They can bring these guys on Almiron off the bench. They have, and this is all, barring like injuries aside. But even if they have injuries, they have depth, in my opinion. I think that being in the Champions League could hurt them, but for the way I'm envisioning Champions League for Newcastle this year is that it's a nice to have. Like, they're going to enjoy it. It's the first time they've been in the Champions League for a while, so they're going to enjoy it, but there's no pressure on them to do well. So it's not going to consume too much on that front. And then I really think that St. James is going to be a fortress and is going to be like the home record for Newcastle is going to be very, very robust. So that's that's the pro Newcastle side of things. And then the reason I didn't go with City, again, they probably have the strongest squad in the Prem, but I just think mentally it's how do you like get up and pick yourself up after just having done the treble. And so the finding that motivation, I know Guardiola and the squad like is full of professionals, but that's what I think is going to be kind of bringing them down. And then, with Arsenal, I really like Arsenal, but I just don't think that their like defensive side of things is as strong. It is going to like keep them in games. Like we saw over the weekend, they got off to such a great start, but sustaining that and being able to, hold it for the 90 minutes, get them over the line, I think is going to be their challenge. So in the end, really, I was looking at Newcastle and City, and I thought might as well Newcastle go for it.
Wow. Yeah, Clay, I want you to go next because I think we all know I have no issues voicing displeasure with Hemant's picks and decisions. I don't feel like I've ever heard you really disagree with Hemant. I feel like you might on this one. I want you to. I want to hear you disagree with him.
I just don't understand. I mean, like
great start, top tier start.
I just so baffled when you sent me this. I thought there must have been a typo. I thought that you must have, like you might have. I mean, I know you have probably out of the four of us, you have probably the most deep football knowledge, and I was like, maybe he confused the badges up or something, but no, apparently you didn't. I'm serious.
But I'm also probably the maybe it's the football romantic in me.
No, and you think so? The football romantic is a club gets taken over by billionaires,
Okay, well,
a
not
bunch
that
of
part.
money, and then they just win the champ and they win the Premier League. I don't think that's romantic. What I think is romantic is
But there's
Luton
precedent
Town
for that.
coming up from the depths of English football and then trying to scrap it out uh, with the oil money of City and Newcastle. But yeah, I mean,
But
the one
would you
thing
not,
I said
Clay,
that
would you not say that there's like, think about it, early City, like 2010, 2011, maybe that's what we're looking at here.
perhaps, but also I think that there are still growing pains that Newcastle has to go through
Okay.
in order to, reach. It's not going to be a linear ascent. It very rarely
Okay.
is for any club, even the teams that have been at the top. And I guess Newcastle has, but that had been more recently at the top. Um, it very
So
rarely is a linear ascent back up to the levels they had been at. And when you keep on adding more and more stuff to their plate. And I think that, I mean, they have two entrees right now, and they're not Joey Chestnut. They can't be eating two hot dogs at once, They
yeah, but they can bring on the second place hot dog, professional, the second place hot dog specialist in the form of Miguel Almiron.
What is going on in this analogy?
And right, Miguel Almiron can eat some hot dogs.
No,
You know,
he started on Saturday.
Joe Willock, Dan Byrne can eat some hot dogs.
There's no way you're telling me that Joe Willock and Dan Byrne are better than like all the depth that Arsenal have. I think out of actually in terms of the top four, it's aside from Chelsea, who just have a ridiculous amount of players in terms of numbers.
Mhm.
Arsenal have, I think, the deepest squad in from top to bottom. They have players that can replace like for like on every single position, and I don't really see that with Newcastle. There's no way
Okay.
that Dan Byrne is on the same level as
Dan Byrne.
Ben White or Jurian Timber that they just signed, who looked really, really good, even though he just got injured. But
That's yeah.
He's not on the same level. He's on a better level. No, okay. What about this point, Clay? What about the midfield? We always talk about the importance of a midfield, especially in a title race. Now KDB is injured too.
right.
Look at Newcastle's midfield. You have Joel Linton, who is one of the hardest working players, transformed himself over the past few years in the Premier League. You have Bruno Guimaraes, who's a stud, absolute impact player. And then they brought on they from Milan the new age Andrea Pirlo, Sandro Tonali. Like, look, what's not to love about that midfield?
There's nothing at all not to love about that midfield. Yet that
Doesn't mean you have
doesn't
to pick them to win
justify
the
putting them in
league.
first place. Because
But if I said that might be the best midfield in the Prem
And it might be, but the
right
other
now.
areas of
no,
the
it's
pitch,
not.
City
No,
is
it's
better.
not. Clay, you're agreeing with that? Arsenal, first of all, Arsenal's midfield last year was top tier, and they brought in Declan Rice.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what
think
Arsenal's
Arsenal have the
midfield is
best.
going to be this year, though.
Arsenal have the
They're
best midfield
playing
in the
Kai
league.
Havertz in midfield. I
Exactly.
don't trust that.
Well,
I don't trust that.
You can't have. There's no way you're
But
being serious right
come on,
now. You're
Partey,
definitely doing this for a reaction.
come on, Partey, Odegaard, and Rice is a better midfield than
Okay, yeah, I
Tonali,
agree with
Bruno.
I
And
agree
Joe
with that, but it's not. I would say Newcastle might be top 3. How about that? And because the Arsenal that I just saw, they didn't play those guys in midfield. They played Partey at right wing back. They played Kai Havertz in midfield.
I think they're still they. I mean, they have a lot of they have some knocks
Okay.
that they're working through.
Top 3 is slightly more palatable than top. Which you said very confidently, but it's still.
I think Isak he's already one of the best players in the Premier League. Isak, when every time he was on the pitch last season, he had an impact.
Okay, but there's no way you can compare.
That doesn't make
Gordon,
him.
Even if you think that Isak is a really good goal scorer, there's no way you can compare Anthony Gordon and Almiron to Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, all the other attacking options that City have. Not to mention Martinelli and Saka and Trossard and all the other attacking options that Arsenal have.
I'll be honest. Even Manchester United, there is not a single person in the world, except for maybe you, that would pick Newcastle's depth up front. Depth, I put that in quotations, over the names that Clay mentioned earlier. If you have Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho, Anthony, most of those who haven't really had time, like they still are trying to find their place and prove themselves. And then whatever, Højlund up top, Martial if he's fit. Every person in the world, including Eddie Howe, is switching Newcastle's front six, whoever your front. I don't even know who their front six are, but you apparently do. Switching the front six for United's front six. Every single
Liverpool.
person.
I mean, Liverpool, I think, in terms of the attacking options, I mean, they have even better than United. So, I mean,
100%. United's is that's what I'm saying. We're talking about it as a not up to par one for the big six.
Right.
Newcastle's is 10 levels below that right now. Like maybe they'll.
I'm still waiting to see. I'm still waiting to see Sancho produce consistently. I'm waiting to see Garnacho. He's a young lad.
Who have you seen what you're telling me? So you've seen Joe Willock produce more consistently than these players.
No, I'm saying when they're called upon, when they come off the bench or they're called upon, then yeah, they like it's a really tough position to be in where you might not be starting regularly. But when you are called upon, you make a contribution. And Newcastle, the players and the lads on that squad are able to do that, which is very difficult to do. So at the top, I'm getting out and out production from a Callum Wilson. I'm getting elite level play from an Isak. Almiron was like second to none in his position last year. So you're getting the production in their system at the top, and then you can plug and play with guys coming in.
The problem is nothing you're saying is actually true. Almiron was good for half the season, and then we didn't see him the second half of the season because he sucked. Like the problem is
he didn't suck.
When we look at the players who are playing, for example, when we talk about the United players versus the Newcastle players, Newcastle are still a new team that are just being built. Very exciting. When players perform for them well, even if it's not very consistent, it's a big deal, as it should be, because these are new players, they're young players. They're exciting players that they're not big names they're not all big names that they've brought in from other. So when they're able to build a team like that and actually get Champions League spot with either Callum Wilson, or not all of them, by the way, producing at the same time, either Callum Wilson or Isak or Almiron or Joe Willock or somebody producing at some point, all coming together as a team effort to win. It's very impressive, and that's why people talk about them in high esteem. If they were producing at the same level of consistency that they're producing for Newcastle at a team like United, they'd be absolutely slated, just like all these players are doing. It's like because it's a different level because you're expecting them.
Yeah, and I'm expecting them to grow on that and to build on that.
That's fine. You can say that, but then you can't say out and out with so much confidence that Newcastle have the strongest depth.
I can say that.
The thing is, you started with depth too. You didn't even start with they have the strongest 11.
Because you guys are going off of names, just names. I'm going off of what I've seen in the Premier League.
No, you're not.
I would not take Sancho. I'm not taking Sancho over a lot of players.
First, you have to keep in mind that I'm using United as I have 5 teams ahead of United who are way better examples. I'm saying even like United,
Liverpool.
Even United, who's my worst option, I'm saying is still probably most people in the world. If you did a poll, most people are still picking United if they have to build their own team. They're picking United's depth up top over Newcastle's. But that's not my first option. If you actually want to argue about it, we'll go City. We'll talk Holland, Alvarez.
City is of course.
No, but you said the best depth. So we'll talk.
I said okay, number 2 outside of City.
Okay, then after City, then we'll go to Arsenal. We'll go to Liverpool. Even Liverpool. You said not Liverpool.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, there's no way that you're going to take.
Wait, let me finish.
Newcastle.
We're talking Salah, Nunez, Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, most of whom were injured last year. But that doesn't mean that we don't know how good they are. No one in their right mind is saying that that's less depth than Newcastle.
Yeah, but you're going off of the names. You're not going off of how they perform in the actual squad and in the system. What has Gakpo done since he's joined?
You clearly have not watched any Liverpool games then, because he has been actually very good.
Yeah, first
Yeah,
of all,
but I'm talking about from like a goal scoring and chance creating perspective.
He's goals.
That's where he's been good. And also, he's only been here for a few months last
Yeah,
season.
that's fair.
He had to integrate into the squad. So, by the way, names are built by actual performances. And like I said, that's the reason. It's a different comparison because these people have names because they have the performances. The Newcastle guys don't yet have the names, which is why their performances, which are not as consistent as you think they are, seem like they're given a lot more hype, which they deserve that hype. But that doesn't mean that if they were putting those same performances in a Liverpool shirt or in a Manchester United shirt, they wouldn't be getting the same level of credit because they're not actually as consistent as you think they are. But also, Chelsea, if you want to talk about Chelsea, I understand Chelsea is an absolute dumpster fire. But their depth is ridiculous. And their midfield, they just signed Caicedo and Lavia while already having the midfield that they currently have. And if you watch Enzo Fernandez in that current game, in the first game, you know that that's ridiculous midfield to have. Enzo Fernandez with the two new signings or the current players they already have.
Yeah. I mean, I can
Chelsea is tough because I don't know how they're gonna fit together.
Yeah.
Like I've seen Newcastle, I've seen it, and I'm projecting on it to continue. Chelsea is a collection of talent, which it was last year, and they've cut a lot of that, reduced a lot of the time. But I just don't know what it's gonna look like. Who's gonna be on the squad?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess my only thing is you think, going back to the United thing, which I agreed with you, that United were very good last season, finished, by the way, above Newcastle, even without their improvements and with the brand new manager with Newcastle had to. Finished above Newcastle last season, whilst playing in more competitions for a lot longer. They were in for the theoretical quadruple until the end of the season, right? They weren't going to win the Prem, but they were playing in 4 competitions. That United team, you said, didn't improve as much as the teams around them. I'm assuming that was in Newcastle because Newcastle haven't made the same level of signings that the other teams in the top 5 have this summer. And that dropped them from 3rd to 7th, which, by the way, even though I pushed you on it, I later said I actually agree with that's a reasonable conclusion. That then means that you're saying Newcastle, even though they haven't actually improved that much over the summer, have competed with the other teams who have improved that much over the summer to now not only finish in like 5th or 6th where United, we were pushing you about United, but actually finish 1st place over City and Arsenal and Liverpool and Chelsea, I guess. That's a question. That's a question. Is that
You're using too much logic. It's there's a bit of that maybe, but it's also maybe it's I like what I saw last year as a foundation. Just like I like what I saw in Arsenal like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's like you could see that this is a solid foundation. And if it just continues and it develops and grows, then who knows what the ceiling is. I like what I saw in Newcastle last year. And who knows, maybe it's similar to City like early 2010s, late 2000s, where they've got this investment. They're growing the club. There's a lot of buzz, like, and who knows, maybe it's the romantic in me. Yeah, but I believe in Newcastle.
I love that, and I will say if that
this clip, like
what?
that. Kaman's gonna say this clip, and then Newcastle's gonna win the league, and we're never gonna.
And then they're gonna get relegated.
That was gonna be my next point. Is that if we just had Newcastle in 1st place, and you were like, that's my crazy pick. I like what I saw last season. We've seen crazy things happen before. I think they've got the togetherness. They've got the quality. They're going to build on it. Promise. They're going. I'm making a bold prediction. Going to win the Premier League. I would have been like, you know what? Fair play. I like bold predictions. But so I don't disagree with I disagree with the pick, but I don't think it's crazy. I like it. I enjoy it. And hopefully they do win the Premier League. What I didn't agree with was the logic that was tried to be used to back up the pick.
It was infallible logic.
It was not. That's what I'm saying. But your first point was that they have the best depth in the Premier League. There's nobody. Eddie Howe would never agree with you in a million years that Newcastle have the best depth in the Premier League.
All right,
especially
top five. How about this? They have the best. They probably have the best home field advantage.
That honestly, if it started
Maybe
with
top
that,
3.
That's not
if
going to
you
win you the league, though. You can look at City; they have
but
the worst home field advantage, and they still win the league.
That's a great point.
it's not going to win you the league. But I think that would have been a better argument than best depth in the Premier League.
All right, Craig, we have 6 minutes, 45 seconds left, and I want to hit on Chelsea real quickly. But let me just say first that, I told you my negatives about Liverpool this year, but I put them in third still just because I do think that they will find a way to shore up the midfield and maybe even the defense. So I think my third place is contingent on more signings this window. And honestly, I do trust the recruitment team because they have made really, really good signings over the years. There haven't been many failures. So hopefully they've demonstrated they have money because they bid 100 and whatever million for Caicedo. So hopefully they go reinvest that elsewhere and can fill the plugs in a promising team. But Craig, okay.
Right. And real quick, Clay, do you want to give a quick word too on Arsenal? Because none of us have Arsenal winning, and some might expect Arsenal to take that leap. Why do you think Arsenal is solid but
actually,
not
for me, it was between Arsenal and City. And I think that, you have, like I said, you have to have growing pains in order to make that leap. And we have seen a positive trajectory over many years for Arsenal. And it culminated in them almost winning the Premier League last year. And I think it boils down to the fact that now their squad is, one, more cohesive because they have gone through this adversity together, but also they're more hardened, they're more experienced. They've gone through a title fight before, and they know now what it takes and how relentless City will be to in the pursuit of a record-breaking 4th title. And you were saying, how is City going to maintain motivation? I think that's what Pep's going to say. Like, we had a chance last year to put our names in the history books, but this year is going to be the one where we cement ourselves as the best Premier League team ever. Because even United never won 4 Premier Leagues in a row or 4 English titles in a row. So I think that's going to be the main motivator for them this year, now that they've kind of finally checked off the Champions League box. But yeah, back to Arsenal. I just think that first of all, the squad they had last year is going to be, they've gone through it once already, and I really like the signings that they've made. And I think they're going to be, except for Kai Havertz. I don't know like why everyone spends that much money on him, but Declan Rice and Timber, I think both of those guys are quality and are going to just improve the squad. But Craig, explain to me why. So I put Chelsea in 4th because I could see positive improvements, and I was honestly very impressed by the amount of progress that Poch has made already in transforming that team into being more of a cohesive team. And if you look at their squad from Sunday, I would say I think maybe 7 or 8 of them had joined the club in the last year or two. So why did you choose them to win?
Yeah. And by the way, this is a crazy pick. Like I knew I was being crazy, but I
You're
like always
crazy.
Huh?
You're crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't realize how uncrazy I actually was. But I like always making at least one big crazy pick, and I guess this was it. Because I guess I'm putting my faith in Pochettino. I think Chelsea are a dumpster fire, but they're a dumpster fire not in the same way that United were a dumpster fire a few years ago, or not the same way that Arsenal were a dumpster fire a few years ago. They're a dumpster fire with maybe 500x the talent that United and Arsenal had when they were a dumpster fire. So all it takes is the right manager, and it's not just the starting 11; it's past the starting 11. They just have so many players, and I think Poch is the right guy. I know I'm going on a limb, but I'm putting my money on him. They're probably not going to win the league, but I do think they're going to do well. The performance versus Liverpool, honestly, was probably the thing that pushed it over the edge, because Liverpool, they're struggling with midfield and stuff, but it's Liverpool. And that Chelsea side really impressed me. Liverpool were playing counterattacking football, which is fine. They played good counterattacking football. But Chelsea, for a brand new team, like you said, they played together. They put together great attacks and movements. And they just, after that game, they signed Caicedo and Lavia, who obviously price tag doesn't mean everything, but 2 clubs were willing to pay 100+ million for for Caicedo and 50+ whatever for Lavia. So that's going to strengthen their midfield even more. And Kunku, who it's not like he's failed in the Chelsea shirt, right? He hasn't. He just came, even though no one's talking about him.
Half their squads just came though.
Sorry,
I said half their squad is new. So how do you? I don't. For me, I see what you're saying. Like they had the talent on paper, but I really don't. And I think that eventually they will probably, if they keep the squad together, they probably will win within the next 2 or 3 years. But I don't see a path where they can put it together that quickly for them to be able to beat out, for me, Arsenal and City.
yeah, I think. Well, so I'll speak to that. And by the way, we only have a minute and a half, but I think it's fine. We can go over one more time if we need to wrap up. Because I still want to hear about like Arsenal and Liverpool from Hemant's perspective.
Okay.
But Chelsea, I think part of it too is this is their DNA. Like this is their history in the Premier League. It's not a long history, but this is their history. They go down to quote unquote rock bottom, 12th place, 15th place, and they win the league the next year. You're right, that shouldn't be possible. No one else does it. No, everyone else needs time to rebuild, but they win it. They've done it 3-4 times before, where they go down 8th place and below, win the league the next year, win the Champions League the next year. 2 years later, they're back down in 7th, 8th place. And it's a new owner, but they've done it before. Bring in all these crazy names, and it just works. We'll take a break, and I'll pause and re-pick up on that in a second. All right, and welcome back from our second and last ad break.
Last segment.
The last segment, if you'll notice, Mont has once again removed his glasses. This honestly might be the most exciting storyline of. Oh, never mind. They're back on.
What did you just say?
The most exciting storyline of this season. Anyways, I think I was talking about Chelsea. I'll conclude. I'll just summarize, I guess. I think there's like 4 or 5 probably reasons that I picked Chelsea. The first and most important one for everyone to note is that I don't think it's likely for them to happen, but I wanted to make a crazy pick, and this was my crazy pick. Second, they have a lot of talent, like I already mentioned. They have a lot of talent, and I think that's a lot of depth. And all they need is a right manager to choose the right people to play. They don't even need the right manager to come in and make the right signings. I think out of all the players that are there, surely the right manager can find the right 11 without having to even make more signings than they already have, plus the Lavia and Caicedo.
Which they will make more signings.
Which they will. And Pochettino, I think, is the man for that. I think he's the man for this job. Third, even though I have 4 fingers up, is that this is Chelsea's DNA. They've done it the same reason that I was hesitant to put Tottenham in the top 6, because I've trusted them before every time they look exciting and they've let me down. Chelsea in the last 10-15 years have done this where they've struggled. They've made a bunch of signings, just fired managers left, right, and center, brought in someone new, and somehow succeeded, and it's worked for them. They've gotten trophies. So history repeats itself. I'm banking on that. Fourth, sorry.
Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry. Fourth, and this is probably the last one, is honestly, I mean, City are still the best team in the league, but they've won 3 in a row, and I just felt like surely not, right? 4 in a row, like surely that's pushing anyone's luck to predict them to win. No one else has done it before. Even the great Sir Alex Ferguson teams, like you mentioned, I think Clay, you mentioned that no one's done it before. 4 in a row in the Premier League is ridiculous. And to be honest with you, I guess this is a 5th. I think if ever there were a time that City, I have just the teeniest of doubts in my head. It might be this season, which is probably still unfounded, but I think they are going through some changes. I think Gundogan is huge. I think him leaving is huge for that midfield. KDB we're just starting to see a little bit of, is he getting towards, he's not towards the end of his career talent-wise or fitness-wise, but from we see with lots of great players, they just become more injury-prone once they hit their 30s and they have to end their career early. He had injuries last year. He had to miss a lot. Are we just starting to see that for him? He's already injured for the first month or 2, probably. Their back line, I honestly had no idea who was going to start in their back line to start this Premier League season. They're all good players, but they're still relatively new to Pep's system. They did well. Ake did well. Akanji did well last season. So they're good names, but it's not we had we knew who was going to start. Well, that's not true. We never knew who was going to start, but we had faith for sure. Like we'd seen him do it over a few years. Like Kyle Walker, I didn't know for sure he was going to start a right back. He did start right back, right? And he's getting up there. So I think if ever there was a time that I have a teeny doubt in City, it's this year, and they've won 3. So that's kind of my 5 reasons why I thought it's a crazy pick, but worth a shot.
But why would you
5-pronged thesis?
Why would you pick them over Arsenal, who would seemingly be a more logical choice?
2 reasons. This is a 2-pronged thesis.
Okay.
I've been preparing for my consulting case interviews, but 2-pronged thesis. The first is that I think if the right manager gets the best 11 at Chelsea, the best 11 at Chelsea is better than the best 11 at Arsenal. I strongly believe that. They just need the right manager to get them to play together as a team. So I think Chelsea has more talent than Arsenal. And even though a lot of people might disagree, it's just a lot of talent doesn't mean anything if it's that many players and no one can play together. And secondly, and more importantly, Chelsea, if I am going to not pick City to win, Chelsea is a much more fun pick than Arsenal. So that was probably the bigger reason.
Honestly, Craig, I was thinking the same thing when I was going through predictions of, I think your third point, the Chelsea kind of yo-yoing between, okay, a poor season, and then they followed up with a really good season, followed that up with a poor season. I think in my mind, the reason I was a little reluctant was when Chelsea has followed up a poor season with a solid season or winning the league, I feel like the core of the squad has been the same. Whereas for this squad, in my mind, it seemed like there was a lot of change, or the core wasn't the same. But no, it'll be really interesting to see. And it seems like they've already kind of low-key like passed people's expectations for what they thought week 1 was gonna have, what week 1 was gonna be like. I think a lot of people were expecting, like Clay Troyer, expecting Chelsea to just implode. But
I mean, all the pundits before the match, they all picked Liverpool and stuff, which I mean, I don't know if I would have done that, but
Speaking of one of those
perfect timing. Perfect timing. Look at this guy. Right on time.
Hey.
We can get his raw reaction.
All right, Clay, take a moment to breathe, to take it
For
all
those
in.
of you who are listening in, Clay Troyer has just joined the podcast. He's been hard at work covering transfers going on in the world. He's been sent out to, I don't know, somewhere, Baku, Azerbaijan.
Clay, if you're having a hard time seeing Tottenham on the screen, it's because logo.
It's because
their logo is really dark. B, we don't really care about them, and they deserve to be dark, especially in the spot that you put them in, which we haven't actually talked about yet.
That's funny. I was like, oh, someone put him top 4, and I was like, oh, that's me.
What do you think, Clay?
I'm taking it all in.
Okay, as you take it in, I was going to say, Clay, right, do you want to give your take on Liverpool, pro Liverpool take?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we never heard it. Oh, he gave it.
I gave it. It's not.
Oh,
I don't have too much to say. I think that no one can deny that the Liverpool squad has talent, and is talented enough to, I think.
Hemant can deny it.
I mean,
Hemant's denied it.
According to Hemant, Newcastle has more depth than any team in the league. So, but I do think that, especially in the attacking options, I mean, the season I foresee for Liverpool is they're going to score a lot of goals, and they're also going to concede a lot of goals, even if they do bring in a defensive midfielder. And to me, this prediction, like I said earlier, is contingent on bringing in a defensive midfielder, but I don't really expect, even if they do bring in one, for them to their defense is immediately shored up to be as good as the year when they ran away with the Premier League. I think the team is still going to be very open, and the tactical tweaks that Klopp is making, I like them, but it's going to make for some entertaining matches, but I don't know if this is going to make for the ultimate success this year. However, I just if you just look at the players that they've signed, like McAllister and Szoboszlai are very, very, very good. I mean, McAllister was really good in the Prem already last year for Brighton, and he won the World Cup with Argentina. And I think he's already showcased his class and versatility in being able to fill in and deputize as a holding midfielder, even though that's not his strongest position. And then you have obviously more they had more outgoings than they had expected with Henderson and Fabinho leaving. But honestly, to me, I'm really excited about a lot of the young talent that Liverpool have on their bench, especially my man Ben Doak.
Ben Doak.
I think
That's what I wanted.
he's gonna get some more minutes this year, and just look him up on YouTube. He's really, really good, or he has some.
He is one to watch
for
the 2027 season.
Exactly.
there are two. Wait, how's Clay Troyer? What's he doing?
Oh,
you can do
I
that?
didn't even know you could do that.
What the heck?
Clay,
But
if you wanted to know where my champion is.
But in a more like realistic note, I think that Bajcetic, or however you say his name, he was really good before he got injured last year, and he's obviously going to improve and become a world-class player, probably better than Casemiro and all those other guys. So
I see.
Yeah,
there's two names that everyone's on the edge of their seat to see how they're going to do. They're like two big names and realize their potential this season. One is Ben Doak, and the other is Udogie. I don't know if that's what you just said, Clay Troyer. Ben Doak and Udogie.
Right on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah. If you ask anyone in the world, those are the two names that everyone wants to see.
Dude, I've been saying Ben Doak's name since this time last year. Actually, before that, I already had him in my mind, but I wasn't confident enough to vocalize it. But now I'm all on the train. I'm on the train.
I think if you're being honest, I remember you saying his name since like senior year of high school. You watched him in one of those academy games.
Dude, probably. He was probably a 14-year-old whipping on 19-year-old guys, and he's good.
But what do you mean by that?
We're not
you know what I mean.
Cut to a break.
We can cut that part
out. What's more likely, Ben Doak scoring 7 goals this season or Newcastle winning the league? All right, Clay Troyer, you've had a moment to take it in.
Wait, wait. Come on, you still have to talk about.
I think we talked about Arsenal.
We talked about Liverpool. No one talked about Arsenal.
Yeah, we talked about Arsenal, didn't we? We talked about like why we don't expect Arsenal to win.
I give my case why they could win the league because you asked me that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I gotta run to another call. Can I say mine real quick?
Yes, Clay Troyer, please.
Fabrizio Romero's on the call.
Win. Huh?
Nothing. Go.
City is gonna win likely, although I don't know. I don't actually know if City will win, but I don't know who would win in their place. So I don't think it's gonna be Arsenal. It's definitely not Tottenham. I mean, this is kind of just a little bit of a troll, to be honest, right here. It could be Newcastle, but I don't think so yet. Hemant. I think they're too green still. United looked terrible today. So I said that's it for them this week. But if they keep getting calls from referees, then maybe they will make it to the top 4 again. But
excellent.
I was wondering, where did United spend all their money this summer? Like they only got a couple guys, nothing really big, no big signings. But then I realized that they must have paid off VFA to ensure they were getting all the calls. I realized no wonder they couldn't have signed anyone else.
Top tier comedy, folks.
Arsenal still solid. I think they'll get top 4. These weren't really in any order, but in all honesty, I think Newcastle's the most likely for top 4, and then I think Arsenal's the next most likely. Then I think Spurs, Chelsea, United, and Liverpool are all kind of just all up there. I think Chelsea's least likely. Then probably Tottenham is next least likely, and then Liverpool, United are probably just kind of. Who knows? Wolves looked good today, but they're probably not going to score any goals. So mid-table for sure. Brighton, I don't know what's going on with them. They're usually pretty good, but all these other teams I think are probably better still, so they're going there too. Villa is kind of the same thing as Brighton in a way in my mind these days. Brentford, they're fine, but they don't have Tony for a while, so it's gonna be hard for them to score a lot of goals unless they get cheap penalties. Um, Nottingham Forest, I like them a lot, but yeah, mid-table for sure.
What?
Bottom half, I mean, I think these are like pretty consistent among the board here. Like this seems like this is probably going to be our bottom half. Interesting though, from Clay W with Wolves.
Yeah.
He might not have seen it dominate United at Old Trafford today. Just kidding. Relegation, I think Bournemouth is clear. Luton's probably pretty clear, and Sheffield, I think, as well. I think I don't know. I don't think Everton will go down, but you know, who knows? Who knows? I still don't, I'm not that confident about this stuff. I'm not that confident about anything this year because a lot of teams are kind of rebuilding in a way. So
Interesting.
there's a lot that could go wrong. I mean, I don't think Arsenal still has the confidence to finish out games as we saw this weekend. They almost blew it. Newcastle, I think they're just still young and figuring themselves out. And when the tough time of the season does hit, because it always does inevitably hit, it'll get the better of them. United, I don't know. Rashford looks off. I just don't get good feelings from them right now. Liverpool, I don't know. I still think like this whole Klopp thing is probably not like they're gonna have to have a wild like year, a really good year for me to think that Klopp can still handle them because I think the team has maybe outgrown him in a way. Not even in a good way, really. Like I just think it's become stale a little bit. You kind of saw it when Salah came off, like he was pissed and just a little bit of drama maybe going on there. Who knows? But Chelsea, I think they're so 50-50, to be honest. Like they don't even know who they are. And they are spending money left and right on players that are not worth the money they're spending on. So that's my hot take.
I think you should go back down through the table one more time.
Okay. So City, I think.
And thank you for tuning into the Clay Chor monologue.
No, Clay, that was first of all, yeah, that was good. Well, there was reasoning. Yeah, you did a good job summarizing what we took an hour to do for you. You did your whole table in like a couple minutes. How come you sound like Bob Marley? Do you just like take some melatonin or something? You've never.
I was at a conference. I was at a conference all weekend and I lost my voice.
Oh, I think I've known you for almost 10 years now, and I don't think I've ever heard you talk about football, especially on a fun predictions episode like this, at such a mellow tone, like you're about to sing One Love.
I know. I got to get back to it. So,
Craig, that's why you said melatonin.
Top tier comedy on.
That's my cue.
All right.
Cheers, fellas.
Yeah.
All right, bye, Clay. Alrighty.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
No, I think this was awesome. I think everyone delivered some.
It was fun.
It wasn't boring. Yeah, last year, Clay, when you and I did it, it wasn't boring, but we had like almost
our tables are like almost identical. So
yeah, this was way more.
And honestly, when I was looking at them at first, I was like, oh man, all of our bottom halves are the same. But there was a lot of different takes, and especially even like reasonings why we put teams in different places. I kind of like what Clay said though, is like there are a lot of teams that are transitioning this year.
Yeah.
So, Hemant, I guess one way that you could spin Newcastle would be there are a lot of teams transitioning this year, and so that leaves the door open for unexpected things to happen. But
sounds like you're coming on board, Clay.
I'm not. I'm just trying to figure out some sort of way for you to argue Newcastle in first.
That's the quickest. That's the quickest. No, I'm not. Denial.
Yeah. The space is filling up, so hop on while you can.
Clay Troyer did. I feel like he made some very good points in his monologue and good reasoning. Yeah, I guess I didn't he also clarified that his top 7 or like top 6 after City aren't actually in order. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I guess so.
He said
He
those
said
are just
they're not in
those are
any
just the teams
particular
that
order.
yeah, those are just the teams they're gonna be in 2 through 7. So that makes sense. But
And
yeah.
he's a big Nottingham Forest guy.
Oh yeah. Okay, good
Just-
episode.
Good
Back to work.
episode. And I don't know if this is closing thoughts for this podcast or for off air, but did we want to discuss any forfeit ideas for our fantasy league that we're in?
Oh yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about that off air. But if you
Yeah.
guys have any suggestions, you can tweet at us on our
Oh,
Twitter page.
and
what's it called?
wonderful.
Like CC Football Podcast, or just comment on YouTube. So
Yeah, we do normally we normally
That's a
we
great
get,
idea.
We get a lot of comments.
yeah, I mean, we may or may not see it. We get a lot of comments, and
Yeah, it gets lost sometimes.
So,
But
yeah,
From around
I
the
think,
world.
I think next time we'll probably have some known names coming on the podcast, like Klopp or Ten Hag, or maybe even come on. You can ask Eddie Howe if he thinks
Yeah.
that Newcastle can win the league. So
we'll start. No, I was just gonna say we'll start with the smaller names, and then we'll work our way up to Ben Doak, and then maybe Udogi will be
yeah.
at the end of the season. We'll get.
All right,
Okay, look out for new
Actual dish.
mustaches and glasses on the next podcast.
exactly, and costume changes. All right, we'll catch you guys next time.